And this is the 6th Sunday of Easter. We are in the 15th chapter of John's Gospel, and we pick up exactly where we left off last Sunday. You remember last Sunday we were in verses 1 through 8 of John's Gospel. This morning we pick it up at verse 9 through 17, and this is the Holy Gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ according to St. John. Glory to you, Lord Christ. Jesus said to his disciples, "As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. I have said these things to you, so that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be complete. And this is my commandment, that you love one another, even as I have loved you. No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends, if you do what I command you. I do not call you servants any longer, because a servant does not know what a master is doing. But I have called you friends, because I have made known to you everything that I have heard from my Father. You did not choose me, but I chose you, and I appointed you to go and bear fruit that will last, so that the Father will give you whatever you ask in my name. I am giving you these commands so that you may love one another." That is the gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Christ. So I remember when I first became a parent, 1987, July, and was pretty terrified. I remember, being in the hospital with Sandy, and I was at seminary. It was in the summertime. The seminary was not occupied. Nobody was around. And we didn't have any family, just the two of us, me and Sandy. And we had this little human being, and we're completely unprepared and didn't quite know what to do. I remember the maternity nurse at the in the maternity ward in the hospital in Evanston, Illinois. She's a large, kind of reminded me of Della Reese, large African-American woman, very wise, very experienced. And she was the head nurse, and slinging babies around like jujubes all day long. And came into our room. I was there with Sandy, came into our room, and she came in and closed the door. This is the discharge interview, where they come in and tell you you're out of there. And she came in and took one look at us and said, "What's wrong with you two?" And, she got it right away that we didn't have a clue what we were doing. And she said, "Now listen, you don't have to worry. All you have to do is pay attention, and this child will teach you everything that you need to know. She'll let you know when she's hungry. She'll let you know when she's not happy. She'll let you know when she's happy. She'll, if you just pay attention and listen, you'll be just fine." It was good instruction. And I have to say that we left with confidence. We left with, we'll be okay. We can do this. Yeah, we can do this. And it occurred to me not very long, maybe a year or so, maybe longer than that after that, that, I was the parent. And that hadn't occurred to me before. But I thought as a parent, it was my responsibility to teach my child the meaning of life. I mean, if a parent has any responsibility whatsoever, just make sure your children know why they're here, what the purpose of life and the meaning of life is. And so, being a responsible parent, I decided to teach my child. And so I began, before she could speak, to teach her. Now, Biz, you must know that the meaning of life is love. The meaning of life is love. While you're here on the planet, the meaning of your life is love. And then as soon as she could speak, I'd ask her what the meaning of life was. And I could ask this just haphazardly anytime I wanted. Biz, what's the meaning of life? Dad, the meaning of life is love. And she, had that down. So here it is one Saturday morning. She's now 3 years old. 3 years old. And I realized by the time that she was 3 how much smarter than she was, which is scary for a parent when you realize your kids are smarter. And so a Saturday morning, and we're just doing household chores, picking things up. And I'm in the living room, I got the vacuum cleaner going. And Biz was bringing her toys and stuff like that out of the family room. And she's walking by with a blanket. And, I stopped the vacuum cleaner. And I said, Biz, I'm so busy, I'm starting to lose my mind. I can't remember. What is the meaning of life? And she drops the blanket, puts those little hands on her 3-year-old hips and says, Dad, the meaning of life is love. Now, why don't you write it backwards on your forehead so you can read it in a mirror and not ask me anymore? Parenting 101. The meaning of life is love. And Jesus is very clear about that. Jesus is very clear about that. With his life, with his teaching, especially with his closest friends. Is very clear. I came across a hymn. We talk really in this second gospel this morning, verses 9 to 17, about 3 things. It's about love, it's about joy, and it's about friends. Friends. I don't call you servants any longer. We're friends. The playing field is equal. And, I wasn't from a Baptist or, my wife is a disciple of Christ and she grew up with this hymn. But it's interesting hymn, What a Friend We Have in Jesus. And you don't have to ask my wife, have you ever heard What a Friend We Have in Jesus? And she'll begin to tear up. It's very emotional for her. And for many people in the traditions that sang this hymn on a regular basis. And, last week I talked a little bit about Abide With Me and Henry Francis Light and the battle that he had with tuberculosis and the loss of his wife and the sadness that overshadowed the last days of his life and really what gave rise to the great Anglican hymn, Abide With Me. But the author of What a Friend We Have in Jesus is a fellow named Joseph Scriven. I think it's pronounced Scriven. I'm not exactly sure. He was Irish. He was born in 1817. And he was engaged. Young Irishman. He was an academic, graduated, went to the University of Dublin, had a promising career as an academic, was going to be a scholar and a teacher, English, and had come a long way. And as a young man, 24, met a young woman, fell deeply in love, engaged to marry. And on the night before he's supposed to get married, his wife drowns. And he didn't feel like he could stay in Ireland any longer. I really don't know why he immigrated to Canada, but it was only within a year of his fiancée having passed that he decides to leave Ireland. And he comes to Ontario, where he teaches poetry, English, and so forth. And he finds out in 1843 that his mother is very sick. He gets word from Ireland that his mother is very sick. And so he composed a poem, and sent it to her. And it was later fashioned into one of the greatest hymns in Christendom. You know the tune, What a Friend We Have. And Elaine, you don't have to sing this, by the way. What a friend we have in Jesus, all our sins and griefs to bear. What a privilege to carry everything to God in prayer. Oh, what peace we often forfeit. Oh, what needless pain we bear. All because we do not carry everything to God in prayer. Have we trials and temptations? Is there trouble anywhere? We should never be discouraged. Take it to the Lord in prayer. Can we find a friend so faithful who will all our sorrow share? Jesus knows our every weakness. Take it to the Lord in prayer. Are we weak and heavy laden, cumbered with a load of care? Precious Savior, still our refuge. Take it to the Lord in prayer. Do thy friends despise, forsake thee? Take it to the Lord in prayer. In his arms he'll take and shield thee. Thou wilt find a comfort there. Blessed Savior, thou hast promised, thou wilt all our burdens bear. May we ever, Lord, be bringing all to thee in earnest prayer. Soon in glory bright, unclouded, there will be no need for prayer. Rapture, praise, and endless worship will be our sweet portion there. Gee, love, what do you say? I love my dog. I do. I love my dog. Love my car. Love my car. I've had my car for a long time. I love my car. I love I have a pair of shoes that it's old and comfortable. I love those shoes. I love my hair. I've loved my hair since I had cancer in 1998. My daughter began buzzing it. I love my hair. And I love my mother. I do. I love my mother, love my father, love my sisters. I have a favorite pen in my office. I love that pen. I can see better when I use these glasses. I love these. They're little tiny. How can you not love those glasses? I love Jesus. I do. Love my wife. I guess I love a lot of things. But what is it really? And the words just kind of tumble out. I'm probably like many of you. I don't leave my house. I don't leave my wife without saying "love you," "love you." Don't end the day and at night without saying "love you too, love you back, love you too." Same thing with my daughter. Same thing with a lot of people. And mean it. Mean it. It's not trivial. It's serious. Love you. Love you. And what was Jesus talking about? And why is it a commandment? And making love a commandment. I mean, really, could I tell my child that you have to do this? This is a commandment. I'm not just suggesting that love is the meaning of life. I'm commanding you. No, that doesn't really work. Doesn't really work, because it does. The source always is determining of it, and then it gets a little messy because it's a little subjective. Well, I'll love you if and when. And, you put a parenthesis around it a little bit. And, you begin to slip into being a person, with preferences and all that. But, when you read a gospel like this, you have to consider there are three different contexts. One, why does not this story appear in the three synoptic gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke? That's a good question. Why does the supper end with their departure to the garden after the meal? Directly. No teaching, nothing like that. But in John, we have this 3 chapters, 14, 15, and 16, called the farewell discourse. And, it's okay among the scholars to call it the farewell discourse. It sounds like a a graduation speech at a university, something stiff and formal and, to a large audience and blah, blah, blah. And it belies, I think, the truth of the context. At the end of the Last Supper, John, as the author, wants us to know what was on the heart of Christ with his friends, only a few before his departure. And like a parent who knows they're soon to leave the world, they want to make sure that their final words are a source of strength and comfort to those they love. Now remember, I'm really sick and I'm close to death, but here's what I want you to know. I want you to know how much I love you. I want you to know how proud I am of who you are. I want you to know that your life from the time of your conception until now has been to me nothing but absolute gift. Thank you. And by the way, I'm going to be just fine. When I'm gone, don't be worrying all that much about me because I'll be where I should be. I'm going home. You, however, have to remain. Be in the world, but don't be of the world. And he's talking to a group of people. I mean, these weren't the sharpest pencils in the box. These boys and girls really had no idea what they were up against. But by the time John was writing his gospel, they knew exactly what they were up against. And what they were up against was very serious statewide persecution. Not only politically, but especially religiously. They were being kicked out of their synagogues. And what was the message that John wanted to impart to those earliest strugglers with Christianity? You're not alone. You can do this. You can do this. But the way through it is love. You have to love one another. And so, the farewell discourse really was an outpouring of love and comfort from the heart of one who loved them more dearly than they had ever been loved. And and his love for them gave him permission to say, this is my commandment. This is my commandment. You got to do this. You got to do this or else it won't work. And, it worked. It worked. So what's always been curious to me about this particular passage is, he's going on about abiding and remaining with him and staying connected. And that's why we meditate twice a day, every day. I mean, it's like if you're trying to run your car without going to the gas station, you're going nowhere. And the same is true with meditation in life. If you're not letting God fill your tank, if you're not plugging in and getting refueled, you're not going to go anywhere. There's not going to be any progress on the spiritual path. You're just going to stay in the same place. That's the way that it works. And he said, now I'm telling you all these things about abiding and remaining and commandments and all that so that my joy may be in you. I've often wondered what a guy who's about to get crucified is talking about joy for. It's the hammer's about to fall and he's right on the anvil. And he's talking about joy, that my joy may be in you. What did he mean by that? What does that mean to you? Is there a joy that's transcended to anything that the planet has to offer? Is there something deeper and more real that we can connect with and remain in, that can help us navigate whatever kind of pandemic comes our way? I mean, how's it been going for you the last year? You doing okay? You abiding? You remaining? Are you in the midst of a deep joy? These are really good questions. And the final encouragement that he gives him, he says, up until now, there's been a bit of a hierarchy in the relationship because I am so cool. I mean, beyond the example of beyond the good examples. And you probably think you can never get to where I am. And that may be true. But for now, in this moment, here's one of the things that you need to know, that we are friends. You and me, we are in a game. It's a serious game. It's a battle between good and evil, and we're in it together. We're friends. And what a great source of encouragement that was to those who were struggling with their faith and having serious doubts about whether the path they were walking was the path that they were meant to walk. So John is writing to three different groups, just as I'm preaching to three different congregations, the one here, the one on Zoom at home, and the ones that'll be watching down the road. John's preaching to three groups. He's talking, number one, about Jesus and a small group of men and women who were just being unleashed into a world completely unprepared for them. Number two, he's talking to an early group of Christians that were struggling, asking big questions about their lives and the direction they were taking all this. And number three, to us today. Number three, to us today. And his advice seems to be pan-determining. Abide, love, joy, and friendship. And friendship. So, you know, I mean, if there was a reason why I would have wanted to be a live disciple of Jesus, is just to have known personally the great love that he had for me. I'd like to know what that love would feel like. And I get glimpses. I do. I get glimpses. I mean, there are times when the love of God just cracks my heart open so big I can just feel it and just fill my whole body. I know that you have too. It's a personal experience. But then a lot of times I just look back on my life thinking about love, and I think about the people that have loved me. I do. And how cool that is. And I don't know, you can check, but I'm pretty sure I checked this morning. I have a belly button. And you might too. And if you do, that's evidence of the fact that you have a mother. Really, you do. And she brought you into the world. She gave you the gift of birth, not the gift of life. She gave you the gift of birth. And you know, most moms, and I think the vast majority of moms, love their children. They love them. And it's almost an unspeakable love. You cannot even describe it. It's so deep and so profound, a mother's love. Why would God do that? The maternal instinct. It's funny the way the universe has made that a reality of birthing mother's love. Maybe it's like an indication of something greater. Well, if this, then this. And there are a lot of philosophers really who and they firmly believe and speak to the truth that every human person, every human being has a natural religious tendency. And I don't mean by that you know, people are inclined to Hinduism or Buddhism or any institution or anything like that. I'm just thinking that a person who is self-reflective and examining will see in the patterns of humanity and life a structure, kind of a pattern, an order to things, the way that they should be. And in reflecting on this order, the examined life reveals that there are times when you are aligned with it and somehow found in it, and there are times when you are not aligned with it and you are somehow lost within it. And it's a natural human innate capability to intuit and know deeply that something's going on that's bigger than you. And if you align yourself with it, you're better off than when you're trying to fight against it or go it alone. Now, what's interesting to me is that this reality is lost on a lot of people, including me, a lot of the time. Some kind of spiritual amnesia. Why don't I get this? Why don't I live like I know this? Why don't I live according to it? And I think every now and then we get reminders. That's why there are moms. That's why, for my 2 cents. And so I came across in my sermon resources, I came across this theologian. His name is James Mackey. He wrote this in 1979. and he's writing on the subject of Christology, who's Jesus. And I really like this because it helps us to understand why the love of other people is so important to us. Because there are a lot of people in life who, for us, are sacramental. They are bearers of God's love. And for whatever reason, their love points us to God's love. And it enables us to live in a universe that's governed really by love and by grace, as opposed to the other stuff. You know what I'm talking about? So this is good. It's complicated. I read this to my daughter. It took twice for her really to get it. So I'm going to explain it as we kind of go down through it. But to my way of thinking, this is pretty good. In the end, the only way to give people the experience of all life and existence as enabling and inspiring grace. Now, right away, he's talking about giving people the experience that life is all about an inspiring grace. An experience. We're not talking about an idea. We're not talking about a rational thought. This is something that happens deep within us, an experience of enabling grace. The only way to give them the experience of being themselves grace and treasure is to treat them as treasure and to be gracious to them. The only way that people will ever understand grace and treasure is to treat them as though they are grace and treasure. It's funny. One of my spiritual mentors is a fellow called James Finley, PhD, bright guy, psychiatrist, monk, studied with Thomas Merton, all that. And his favorite word, for me, it might not be his, but for me is precious. He talks about human beings as being precious, and not in a sentimental way. As being just a human being as being, precious. Okay, here's James. The sun may indeed rise on the evil and the good, and the same rain refresh the just and the unjust, but the lesson will likely be lost on me unless the warmth of another human being envelops me, unless some other human person refresh the weariness of my defeated days. I love that. Unless some other human being envelops me, some other human person refresh the weariness of my defeated days, because life can beat you up. I simply will not feel my own life, my own self, as grace or gift of God unless someone values me. Now, it would make sense that the logic in life would indicate, first, feel all life and existence as gift or grace. First. In other words, the first thing that a human being would come to realize when realization's first happening is that you exist as a gift, as grace. And from that experience of that inbreaking, then feeling the grace of God, you would be gracious to other people. Well, look what God has given me. How cool is that? I'll just give it to other people. Now, logic would indicate that that would be the way of humanity, that we'd know that life comes to us as gift, and we're so grateful and so touched by that that we just spread it around. This is the way that it shouldn't work. That you would first feel the grace of some human presence, feel forgiven, feel accepted, feel served, and then begin to feel that all life and existence as grace, and then feel inspired and be gracious to others. In other words, The second way, the least obvious way, is that, this grace would somehow break into your life through another human being. They'd be nice to you. They'd accept you. They'd forgive you. They would serve you. And because of that, you would have the realization that you should go out and do that to other people. My friend Johnny Brinkle, who was the, I shouldn't call him Johnny, John Brinkle, the pastor of the Catholic Church in St. Helena, he tells a great story. As a little kid, he was diagnosed with polio. A lot of kids were in the 50s. And one of the things that happens is that, your limbs become weak. It affects the central nervous system. It does all kinds of things. But one of the remedies the family doctor was told was that his legs had to be wrapped in these warm, some kind of bandages. They were heated up in hot water and then wrapped around his legs. And he said he remembers as a little kid, it was hot on the farm. They lived on a farm. And his mother in the kitchen was boiling water, the wood stove raging, 100 degrees outside. She's sweating profusely, face red as a beet, almost about to pass out herself. And she's boiling this water to prepare these claws that she would then wrap around his legs again and again for long periods of time. And he realized to himself, he said, my God, this woman must really love me. And that's where he first discerned a call to ministry. But the way that it's supposed to work is the other way. That we realize right away, well, of course, the creator of the universe has given me life and grace and forgiven me and loves me and everything, and that's the way I'll live too. Not the other way around, that it would come first through a person and then to the creator. So Mackey goes on. But it really is a human idiosyncrasy. In other words, it's kind of unique to humanity. That's operative here, not a matter of logic or rational thought, because we really aren't. I mean, we like to think that we're smart. We like to think that we're thoughtful. Maybe on a good day, 2 or 3%. What do you think? It may well be that some rare individual, perhaps Jesus himself, followed the former logic, having a power of perception, in other words, knowing that God loved him, and evaluation, knowing how deeply he was loved, and acceptance far beyond the ordinary. In other words, Jesus was keenly aware of evaluation and acceptance far beyond the ordinary. Indeed, in the case of Jesus, it is very likely that his power to value and to love went far beyond any human being's ability to value him equally. But for the rest of us, we can only sense ourselves and our world valued by God when we feel cherished and valued by others. Thank you, Mom.
Contributions to St. Luke's Episcopal Church help to make the digital ministry and other outreach within the community possible. If it is in your heart to make a donation, St. Luke's secure PayPal link, as well as the church's mailing information, may be found in the description of this video. Thank you.